Hello, good beings, and welcome back to Midnight Requiem. Today we'll be talking about Dorothy Mae Kilgallen, was an American columnist, journalist, and television game show panelist. After spending 2 semesters at College of New Rochelle, she started her career shortly before her 18th birthday as a reporter for the Hearst Corporation New York Evening Journal. Kilgallen was born in Chicago, the daughter of newspaper reporter James Lawrence Kilgallen and his wife Mae Arne. She was of Irish descent and was a Catholic. Dorothy had a sister, Eleanor, who was 6 years her junior. The family moved to various regions of the United States until 1920, when the International News Service hired James Kilgallen as a roving correspondent based in New York City. The family settled in Brooklyn, New York. Dorothy Kilgallen was a student at Aramus Hall High School. After completing 2 semesters at the College of New Rochelle, she dropped out to take a job as a reporter for the New York Evening Journal. The newspaper was owned and operated by the Hearst Corporation, which also owned International News Service, her father's employer. In November 1938, Kilgallen began writing a daily column, The Voice of Broadway, for Hearst's New York Journal American. After the corporation merged the Evening Journal with the American, the column, which she wrote until her death in 1965, featured mostly New York shows, businesses, news, and gossip, but also ventured into other topics such as politics and organized crime. The column eventually was syndicated to 146 newspapers via King Feature Syndicate, and success motivated Kilgallen to move her parents and Eleanor from Brooklyn to Manhattan, where she continued to live with them until she got married. On April 6, 1940, Kilgallen married Richard Colmar, a musical comedy actor and singer who had starred in Broadway show Knickerbocker Holiday and was performing in the Broadway cast of Too Many Girls at the time of their wedding. They had 3 children, Richard Dickey, Jill, and Carrie Colmar, and remained married until Kilgallen's death. Early in their marriage, Kilgallen and Colmar both launched careers in network radio. Kilgallen's program Voice of Broadway was broadcast on CBS during World War II, and Colmar starred as the titular character in the nationally syndicated crime drama Boston Blackie that ran from 1941 to 1945. Beginning in April 1945, Kilgallen and Colmar co-hosted a weekday radio talk show on WOR 710 AM. Breakfast with Dorothy and Dick was broadcast from their 16-room apartment at 640 Park Avenue. The show followed them when they bought Neo-Georgian townhouse at 45th East 68th Street in 1952. The radio program, like Kilgallen's newspaper column, mixed entertainment, news, and gossip with serious matters. Kilgallen and Colmar occasionally had Major League Baseball players as a guest on the show. The couple continued doing the show from their home until 1963. Kilgallen, longtime fellow panelist on What's My Line, Arlene Francis, also hosted a weekday talk show on WOR for many years. Dorothy and noted singer and actor Frank Sinatra were fairly good friends for several years and were photographed rehearsing in a radio studio for a 1948 broadcast. Eventually, they had a falling out after she wrote a multi-part 1956 front-page feature article titled The Real Frank Sinatra Story. In addition to the New York Journal American, Hearst-owned newspaper across the United States ran the feature. Following the publication, Sinatra made derogatory comments about Dorothy's physical appearance to his nightclub audiences in New York and Las Vegas. However, he stopped short of mentioning her name on television or during magazine and newspaper interviews. Dorothy covered the 1954 murder trial of Sam Shepard. He was a doctor convicted of killing his wife at their home in Cleveland suburb of Bay Village. The New York Journal-American carried the banner front page headline that Dorothy was shocked by the guilty verdict because of what she argued were serious flaws in the prosecution case. At the time of the Cleveland jury's guilty verdict in December 1954, Dorothy's sharp criticism of it was controversial, and a Cleveland newspaper dropped her column in response. Her articles and column in 1954 did not reveal all she had witnessed in the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. 9 years after the verdict and sentence, and after the judge had died, she claimed in an event held at the Overseas Press Club in New York that the judge had told her before the start of the jury selection that Shepard was guilty as hell. Attorney F. Lee Bailey, who was working on a habeas corpus petition for his client, Shepard attended the Overseas Press Club event, heard what Dorothy told the crowd, and then asked her privately if she would help him. Some days later, as Bailey wrote in his memoir, "The defense never rests. We obtained a deposition from Dorothy that was inserted into the petition submitted to Carl Andrew Weinman, judge for the United States District Court for the Southern District of Ohio." Bailey also included in the habeas corpus petition a statement from Edward Murray, who had worked in 1954 as a court clerk at the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. Similar to Dorothy's statement, Murray's statement indicated that Edward J. Blythen, the original Shepard judge, had said that Shepard was guilty even before the grand jury indicated him on August 17, 1954. In July 1964, 4 months after the Overseas Press Club event, where Dorothy broke her silence about the deceased Judge Blythen, Judge Weinman of the federal court granted Bailey's habeas corpus petition. Sam Shepard was released from prison amid much newspaper publicity, and Shepard met Dorothy at a late-night champagne party in Cleveland. Kennedy's assassination. Dorothy was publicly skeptical of the conclusion of the Warren Commission's report about the assassination of President Kennedy and Jack Ruby's shooting of Lee Oswald, and she wrote several newspaper articles on the subject. On February 23, 1964, she published an article in New York Journal-American about a conversation she had with Jack Ruby when he was at his defense table during a recess in his murder trial. She also obtained a copy of Ruby's June 7, 1964 testimony to the Warren Commission, which she published in August 1964 in 3 installments on the front pages of New York Journal-American, the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Seattle Post-Intelligencers, and other newspapers. Now, Dorothy was a well-known reporter. She had done a thorough investigation into Kennedy's homicide. The information she collected was to be presented as part of a groundbreaking story. Dorothy, however, died under mysterious circumstances. She was found dead in her apartment on November 7, 1965. An autopsy concluded that she had an overdose on drugs. But did she really overdose on drugs? In addition, where were all the notes and documentations she had for her Kennedy story? Mysteriously, the documents had disappeared. Today, it's believed that someone killed Dorothy to prevent her from releasing her story about Kennedy's death. No one has ever recovered her work, and no one truly knows what happened to Dorothy. Did someone murder her to keep her story from ever seeing the light of day? Unfortunately, the answers died with Dorothy. Her funeral mass took place on November 11th at the Church of St. Vincent Ferrer in Manhattan. John Daly, Arlene Francis, What's My Line producer Mark Goodson, Betty White, Ed Sullivan, Joseph E. Levine, and Bob Considine were among the 2,600 people attending. Coverage of the funeral in the New York Journal-American, where she had worked, included Mrs. Bennett Cerf, and among the notable people who attended, she was interred at the Gate of Heaven Cemetery in Hawthorne, Westchester County, New York. leave a white heart in the comments in remembrance of them. And as always, be loving and caring, my good beings.